Hello everyone, welcome to today's session. Imagine you open your phone and start scrolling through the Instagram or YouTube, a comedian crack a joke, or an influencer drop a reel, or a broadcaster give a fairy opinion on politics or society. At first it feels entertaining, right? But here is the twist. What if this content or the fun content is not just a harmless entertainment? What if it's crossed the line which mocking women, minority, senior citizen, or the person with the disability? Should such content still enjoy the shield of free speech? Or should there will be a limit when the dignity is at the stake? This very dilemma recently came before the Supreme Court of India. While hearing a case against a comedian, the Supreme Court of India made some important observation. The Supreme Court of India said, today the social media influencers are commercializing the free speech. In a simple terms, the Supreme Court of India said they are not just expressing themselves, they are monetizing their content which building a career out of it. And when the money and the reach came to play, the risk of irresponsible speech which multiplies. The Supreme Court of India cautioned that freedom of speech and expression cannot be misused as a weapon to target the vulnerable groups. Now, the judges draw a fine line, which they remind us that humor is a valuable part of free speech, but not when it strips the peoples of their dignity. A derogatory joke may small, but it reinforces the stereotypes, perpetuates the stigma, and weakens our constitutional promise of inclusivity. In a society like India, which is already so diverse, such content can widen the debate instead of bringing the harmony. So, naturally, this raises the next question, what can be done about it? The Supreme Court of India recommended three important steps to protect the freedom of speech and expression. The first, the Supreme Court of India said, the Supreme Court of India directed the union government to frame a clear and enforceable guideline for influencers and broadcasters. The Supreme Court of India said that should be done with the consultation with the national broadcasters and the digital association. Second, the Supreme Court of India emphasized the sensitization and digital ethics, which means the Supreme Court of India reminding the content creator that right also carry the responsibility. And third, the Supreme Court of India ordered unconditional public apologies, which stressing that goal is not to silence the free speech but to strike a balance between liberty and our dignity. But this brings us to an important point. Don't we already have a laws for online behavior? Yes, we do. The Information Technology Act of 2000 is the cornerstone, especially the Section 79, which provide a safe harbor protection to the platforms like Facebook or Instagram as long they remain neutral, which will not violate, or we can say that do not manipulate the content. Other important section you should understand from the act is section 69A, which gives the government power to block the online content in the interest of the sovereignty, security, or the public order. On the top of this, there is another rule called the IT Rule 2021, which made a mandatory for the platform to remove the unlawful content and ensure the user safety. And in 2023, an amendment even required the platform to take down the misleading content about the government. But recently, the Supreme Court of India stated, which warning that such power could be easily misused. There are different judicial pronouncements have also shaped this space. In one of the famous case, what we all know that in Shreya Singhal versus Union of India case in 2050, the Supreme Court of India struck down Section 66A, which criminalized offensive message online for being vague and misused against the free speech. And other famous case we can say case Puttusamy versus Union of India case 2017, the Supreme Court of India declared privacy a fundamental rights under Article 21, which laying the foundation for the stronger data protection. So yes, the framework exists, but here is the catch. It has not kept up with the today's digital explosion. We can say that social media in 2000 was nothing like a social media in 2025. Back then in the IT Act was about regulating the email and the cyber cafes. Today the same law is expected to regulate the influencers, reels, deepfakes and AI generated content, and one more thing what we can say that viral political campaigns. And that is why clearly there is a gap is widening for what we can say that is why there is a demand for the stronger regulation is growing louder, because the reality is this: social media is not just about the freedom of expression anymore, it is also about the protection from harm. The unchecked platforms which enabling the cyberbullying, trolling and explosion of vulnerable groups. They act as the highway for the misinformation and hate campaign. They feed into the mental health crisis among our youth and which conversion of driven anxieties. And let's not forget, the influencers often promote unsafe product or betting apps without disclosure or misleading the consumers. And so the regulation therefore is not just a desirable, it is urgent, but as it with all things, it is easier said than the done. So the regulation faces a massive challenge. The sheer volume of content is beyond the human controlling, or what we can say that human monitoring. There are like anomalies which give the people courage to say things they couldn't dare to say in person. The definition of harmful speech itself is a subjective, which means what one person find offensive, other call it a satire. Add a cross-border content host on foreign server, and the enforcement become even tougher. And every time the government tighten the rules, it faces criticism of censorship and the political bias. So how do we move forward? The experts suggested a multi-pronged approach for India's new digital platform. What we need that India need a new Digital India Act which reflect the reality of today, not 24 years ago. The platform must be held accountable through algorithmic transparency and independent audits. Our institutions need a greater technical capacity, and that means we all know that AI enabled modernization, stronger cyber cells and quicker and rehearsal system. So the citizen must be equipped with a digital literacy campaign so they can be identify the fake news, the trolling and use the platform responsibly. And finally, since the social media is a global, India must strengthen the international cooperation, because no country can regulate the digital world alone. For the UPSC perspective, this topic cut, we can say that this topic cut across both GS paper 2, which is in the GS paper 2, the governance, rights and regulation, and GS paper 3, which talk about technology, internal security and our society. A possible mains question arise from this topic that discuss the challenge in regulating the social media in India. How can we balance between the free speech and social dignity be maintained? And before we wrap up, here is a quick note for the aspirants. Manorama Yearbook Online is launching 2026 prelims test series which started already in August 18. This program include 75 carefully designated tests which split between NCERT based and standard textbook based sources, ensuring your complete syllabus coverage. Thanks for listening. I hope this session helped you to connect the dot why the Supreme Court of India observation on social media, free speech and dignity matter for India's today. Stay curious, keep learning, and see you in our next session.